Hello and welcome to the seminar for on Savvy Home Selling. It's part of our Savvy Home Selling series. This is part one, which is Essentials of Selling, and this is only being done via Zoom. And then we will actually be having part two in person because I'll have my favorite CPA, Joseph Dowley, will be joining us, and he'll be talking about, together we'll be talking about navigating the costs and taxes when it comes to home selling. So today is part one, which is Essentials of Selling. So before I begin the main part of the seminar, I'm going to do, as I always do, a real estate market update. So the first metric that we'll look at is median sale price. This is for single family homes in San Mateo County. When you talk about median sale price, what we're saying is that the number of homes that sold above this price is the same as the number of homes that sold below this price. And so, as you can see, this chart goes all the way back to 1999. And you can see the ups and downs. Right here, that big dip that you see is 2008. This is when I started real estate, right when it was at the bottom of the market. Since then, that was that Great Recession. Since then, we've had starts and stops, ups and downs, but steadily going upward, as we've seen. And then this red line here is the COVID lockdown. So during that time, there was a little bit of a pause, a little bit of a dip, and then the market just took off and peaked to where we had in 2022 last year in April. It was our all-time high of 2.25 million. So that's that peak over here. Since then, last year, and I'll go a little bit into why, we did experience over the course of the year the prices dropping, and then they have started to equalize and coming back up to where last month in September, our median sale price for San Mateo County was at 1.83 million. So it is down from those peaks that we experienced post-COVID, but definitely we are still higher than we were before the pandemic. And so, and you do see a little bit of that up and down going on, but just try to wrap your mind around, when I started real estate, as I said down here, median sale price was around 500,000. And between my agents, among my fellow agents, we would talk about that $1 million listing and all of that. Now the median sale price we're just shy of 2 million, and at the peak it was 2.25 million. So just kind of thinking about that metric, the prices have gone up, more than double, triple, in some cases, 4 times. So even with all of the ups and downs along the way. The next metric that I like to look at is months of inventory. So this has to do with if we were to take the inventory, the number of listings that are available on the market, and were to sell all of them, not having any new ones come in, but just were to sell all of them at the current rate of selling, then you come up with a number that's called the months of inventory. Typically we call 6 months, which is this green horizontal line, that is considered a balanced market. So if you have 6 months of inventory, it's not a buyer's market, it's not a seller's market. If you go higher than that, as we did, this is during that Great Recession, where we got up to almost over 10 months, that is considered a buyer's market because there's a lot of inventory. If we were to get no more new inventory, it would take up to 10 months to be able to sell it all, get rid of it all. Anything under the 6 months is considered traditionally a seller's market because the number of inventory is low. And so we're getting to, if you have a low inventory market, there's not as much for buyers to buy, it's going to be more competitive, et cetera. And so as you can see here, ever since 2012, we've been in a seller's market according to this metric. So we've been bouncing around 2 months. That's this level here. During COVID, there's that red line that we see, and we did see a slight increase, not too much because not many homes were coming off being sold, but at the same time, not many were coming on temporarily. And so then we saw that happen post, as during that time that we peaked, I mentioned for median sale price, we also saw correspondingly that dip in inventory. And that's mainly the reason why we did see such a rapid rise in prices. So as you see here, there were levels at which at which toward the beginning of last year, we were at 0.8, 0.9 months of inventory, so less than a month of inventory overall for the county. Right now, that has over time, that did pick up toward the end of last year and beginning of this year to where we were back to about 2 months levels. And it was interesting because I was hearing from some people who would say, some agents who would say, oh, I think we're in a buyer's market. And that one is a difficult question, right? Because the inventory wise, it's not showing that. And I remember listening to Elliot Eisenberg, who is a partner economist with our association, and he was asked this question: are we in a buyer's market or a seller's market? And he paused and said, I would say we're in a challenging buyer's market, because the inventory is not showing it as a buyer's market, but the challenges of selling and the demand had gone down in such a way that it's challenging for buyers because the prices are high, the interest rates are high. So that was the way that he phrased that. At this time, we're still, so as of September, we're at 2 months of inventory. In the preceding months, recently, we've been more at, so in August, we're at 1.5, 1.7 previous to that. So still inventory levels is a huge factor in our market. And we're hearing that, all over the country, but in our area specifically, we've had an inventory issue going all the way back to 2012. And we're not seeing really signs of it letting up much. There are different factors for that. Some people say, part of it has to do with this lock-in effect, where you have sellers who have incredible interest rates on their mortgages, 2.5%, 3%. And if they want to sell and buy, they're looking at twice that or even possibly 3 times that. And so there's a little bit of that lock-in effect going on. There are some other factors, but that's one of the ones that's the newer ones more recently that we're citing. The third one that I'll go into is a days to sell. This has to do with how long does it take when a house goes on market until you get an offer that's good enough for them to accept it. So this again is for single family homes in San Mateo County. As you can see, this goes back to 1999, and and you see the red line with the red marking. In the 2008, 2009, it wasn't uncommon to see homes taking 30 days, even up to 60 days. This is the median, 60 days to sell. This is during the time of the Great Recession, just taking longer to sell. Plus, a lot of what we saw coming on were short sales and foreclosures, which would take also a long time to kind of negotiate that and figure all of that out. So, so that was going on. Since then, we've seen the median days to sell hovering between the 10 to 20 day range. You see this red line, COVID lockdown, you see it go down to 0. That doesn't mean that homes were selling in 0 days. It just is a factor that because we didn't know what was going to happen in the early days of the pandemic, the MLS, our multiple listing service, actually decided to pause or shut down the time clicker for how long it was taking, because we weren't able to show property, we weren't able to do open houses, and so it wasn't really a true number to be counting how many days on market, and that's what was going on. That's what's going on for this number here at 0. Other than that, we did see that for days on market in January and December of last year and January of this year, we did see that number go up pretty high to 26 and 29 days. But since then, it has come back down to 12 days, 11 days, 10 days. And if you think about that, that means from the time that the house goes on market until you actually get an offer that you accept, average, median of 10 days is a week and a half. So it's very quick. It may be one weekend of open houses. That means that there are homes that actually sold quicker than that, as well as homes that sold above that. But you can see that houses are still selling fairly well, which I think is good to know when we start talking about home selling and the timelines and what to expect. So as of September, we were at 12 days on market in median. And that's, again, for single family homes in San Mateo County. One of the biggest impacts in terms of why did things start slowing down toward the end of last year and where are we now has to do with our interest rates. So this is a chart of the 30-year fixed mortgage rate. This is according, the source is Freddie Mac. And just over the course of going back from 2022, you can see at the beginning of 2022, we're looking at rates for the 30-year fixed rate mortgages somewhere around the 3% range. I'm sure many people watching this will have, even less than three on their mortgages. And what happened over the course of the year, this is all the way going up through, this is now the beginning of 2023 is right here. We saw just a huge increase just within months, literally picked up over months, where we ended out the year with the interest rates hovering around 7%. And, that is going to definitely dampen how buyers feel about buying, how sellers may feel about selling. And so that was a big impact. Since then, we've seen things hover around the same prices. In recent days and weeks, we've actually seen the interest rates going over the 7% range. So that's been a huge factor, because again, every time you increase the interest rate, that is going to impact buyers in terms of how much they can afford. One kind of rough rule of thumb is every time you raise the interest rate about 1%, that impacts your buying power by 10% in terms of the prices. So again, that's a rough formula, but just think when we went from 3 to 6% over the course of a few months, that's going to impact people, the buying power, by 30% or more. So that's a huge thing. The thing to keep in mind, though, is if you take a broader picture of this, interest rates over the long term. So this goes back to 1971. In 1981, and one of the agents at my office actually purchased in 1981, his interest rate was 18.6% when he bought his home. And that's huge, right? But there were still homes being bought and sold at that time, because people still do need to buy and sell. And so as you go, as I showed even in the previous slide, I showed over the course of a year and a half, it feels extreme, the prices that we're getting. Being at that 7% range now here, if you take it in the whole historical perspective, is not that bad. Plus, I think buyers are starting to get more used to this as the new normal, and at the same time, understanding that they can refinance later. Find your dream home now. There are these little catchy phrases like, date the rate, marry the home, all those kinds of things, so that you find the home that you love, and know that eventually the rates may come down, and at that time you can refinance. So this is a big impact, and I would say that inventory levels and interest rates are what are driving the market the most right now. So in the field, I'm just to quickly say, we are seeing kind of a mix of both, where there are homes that are coming on the market. We're slowly picking up in inventory, but many of them are actually being sold as they come on the market. So as quickly as they come on the market, as I mentioned, 10 to 12 days on the market is not uncommon. It's our median. And we are seeing cases where houses are getting multiple offers, well over the asking price. We're also seeing the opposite, where you're actually seeing houses that are staying on the market longer and experiencing price reductions. And I'll go a little bit into that more as we delve into home selling. So going into the heart of this seminar, a quick outline for you. We'll do first an overview of the selling process, and then talk about preparing a home for market and the different things to do for that. Complete disclosures, what the importance of that, what's included in disclosures, pricing your home, which is crucial, always crucial, but especially now, and then evaluating and negotiating offers. So first of all, the overview of the home selling process. Oh, my slides are doing this fun thing. Okay, overviewing of the home selling process. So the initial preparation, I would say, first of all, important to identify your goals and needs. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? When is it that you're trying to accomplish it by? What other parties are involved? What are all the different things that are happening? And then hand in hand with that is hire a real estate professional. The reason I say hand in hand with that is you may have an idea of what your goals and needs are, but when you're talking to a real estate professional, it'll help to, they will be able to help you to kind of hone that down and understand, okay, what's my timeline? What are my goals? Where do I want to go? Where do I want to be? And then from there, preparing the home. So, and I'll go a little bit more into detail on that. So that'll be the cleaning, repairs, organization, start working on seller disclosures. And again, I'll be covering that in more detail, and establishing a list price. And this list price may be have to be fluid depending on how long it takes for the house to go on the market and how things change. 1 to 2 weeks before the listing, you would do the prep. The prep before that would be more ordering inspections, deep house cleaning, staging if that's what you're going to do, which highly recommended. Professional photos, and that could be stills. And I do for all of my listings a 3D photography. I know I was doing it before COVID. I know a lot of other agents and brokers started doing it more during COVID because it would just make it hard. It was harder to show houses at the time. I still continue it, and I'm a firm believer in it because I think it helps to keep your buyers engaged. Most of the buyers out there are looking on the internet, and so the more you want, the more they see photos and they get to see 3D tours. You get them engaged with your listing, and that makes a huge difference. So I'm a huge believer in that. And staging as well, which I won't go into in full detail here, but I think whenever possible, if you can do the staging is crucial. And then prepare marketing materials. So that would be once you get the staging done and then your photos, then it would be preparing all of the, brochures and other things that will be going out. Once you're on the market, the timeline will depend on market conditions. Like I said, right now, our median sale price is 12 days. That's for the whole county and for single family homes. So it's going to differ depending on where you're at. And so that's something that your real estate professional will be able to help you with. And then once it's on market, we'll advertise, which is, going on MLS, which is the multiple listing service. Any other internet sites that are out there, which generally get fed from MLS out to all the sites that you're familiar with, social media, print mailers, and the like. There are open houses. There's a broker tour, which is basically an open house for agents that's set aside during the week, and then individual showings. And then after that, you can be hopefully reviewing offers and then choosing to accept, reject, or counter them. And I will go into that in more detail. Once that happens, then you ratify your contract. Once all the parties have signed, that's what you call ratified contract or executed contract. And then escrow is opened. That typically takes 25 to 30 days if financing involved. But it can be much shorter or longer. There are also during this time, there are contingencies and loan timelines. Some examples of those, the main ones are property inspections and insurance, appraisals, and the loan contingency. So all of that timeline, I said typically 25 to 30 days. It can be shorter or longer than that, depending on really the financing is the biggest piece that will determine the financing. So if you have an all cash offer, usually you can close within 7 to 10 days. You might be able to do it sooner, but it gets really stressful and that time goes quickly. So I would say 7 to 10 days. In some cases, there may be some different circumstances where it's going to go longer to maybe 45 or 60 days, depending on how you negotiate. But 25 to 30 days is kind of a good rule of thumb to plan for. So 1 to 2 weeks prior to that close, so during that escrow period, you will have the escrow officer will order the loan payoff amount. If you have any loans on the property, they would need to get that information directly from your lender. The seller, you would sign your documents, which would include a grant deed and your account info, spelling there, account info for your proceeds. So they would be getting that. And then make arrangements to close out utilities and insurance. That's something that the seller would do. And then a final walkthrough by the buyer, just to make sure that things haven't changed since they put in their offer. And then close of escrow will happen. So that what happens with that is that there's a recording of the transfer at the county recorder's office. So now they call it a grant deed, and that gets filed there to show that you, the seller, have granted the buyer the property. So that's what happens there. The keys go to the buyer. If there's any rent back involved, where as a seller you need to stay a little bit longer, then that can happen after close of escrow. And then the important thing, you get your money. So net proceeds to be dispersed to the seller. first of all the other liens and costs have to be paid off. So that would happen. And then your net proceeds would be going to you. And that usually takes, if you close in the morning, you can often get your money by that evening, definitely by the next day. So preparing a home for market. One question that I get from people often is vacant or occupied. Is it okay if I live in the property when I'm selling? I would say if you need to, there are ways to work around it. It's not impossible, but it really is best to sell when the home is vacant. Why? Well, first, obviously, it's a better showing condition because you'll be able to spiffy it up. We'll be able to stage it. I always say, staging is not how people live in real life, but if you need to live there, you're going to have all your possessions and things like that, and things to live. So if you're not there, you'll be able to show it better. It does also allow buyers to see the home as a potential home for themselves and not for someone else. And that's really important. You don't want a buyer coming through to feel like I'm visiting, Mr. Seller's home. It's more, I'm coming to see if this could become my forever home, my home that I want to buy. It also, if you're not living there, to have a vacant home, it makes it more accessible for agents and their buyers. And definitely you want as many people as possible to come by. And if an appointment needs to be made or different arrangements need to be made, again, it's not going to mean that people don't come to see it, but you'll probably have a better chance of more people to come by if it's just vacant and people can come by at any time. And it's also less stress for you as a seller. So don't underestimate this. I have clients who, they needed to stay in the property and they're like, okay, we'll be okay. The husband was really cute because he actually had a list of what to do when somebody's coming, when somebody's going to come to the property. So put the toilet seat down. I saw his little list, put the toilet seat down, arrange the pillows. And so he had to take a picture of the staging so that he could arrange the cushions exactly right. Make sure that you close the closet doors, and after about a week of it, so they thought they would be okay. After about a week of this, they're like, oh, we really hope that we'll sell. And thankfully we did. But, you think that it's not that difficult to do, but it actually can be very stressful if you're trying to just live life, but you have people needing to stop by. So definitely whenever you can, if it's possible to have a unit that's vacant, that's optimal. So home interior, if occupied, some suggestions is declutter, remove as much of small stuff as you can, as well as much of the furniture, especially big bulky pieces, if possible, to remove that as much as you can. Remove personal items, so family photos, religious items, etc. Anything that will, again, make a buyer feel like they're coming into your space instead of it coming into their potential future space is important to do. Put away all valuables and medications. This is really, really important. If you have any valuables, take them off site, put them into a safe. If you have medications, make sure that they're secured, put them in a cabinet and secure them or something. Because, during open houses, especially, we as agents, we want to be responsible, but sometimes you have, groups coming in at the same time. It's really hard to keep track and we can't follow everyone around. And so I would just say, if you can do that, that would be optimal. And then I'll be talking about repairs and improvements in a later slide. So important, regardless of whether you're selling, whether it's vacant or occupied, one of the big pieces, first things will be identifying your needed repairs. So walk through with a real estate agent. I'd love doing that with prospective sellers who just want to have an idea of recommendations that what do I need to fix, what do I not need to fix, that kind of a thing. Getting inspections done can be very helpful because that will tell you what are some of the issues that maybe you don't necessarily have to address them, but there might be some that you can, that are simple fixes. And so the inspections will help you with that. Local requirements. So that's something in many of the cities in the Bay Area, we have sewer lateral requirements. There's a chimney spark arresters in some cities here, water conserving appliances. There's some energy conservation. There are a bunch of local requirements. They're called point of sale, which means when a house is being sold, then these things need to be addressed. And so local requirements is important to know. And then any health and safety issues that are obvious, those are a no-brainer, right? Because you're going to have people coming through and seeing the house. You really want to make sure that there are no issues with, safety for those people who are coming through. In some cases, if it's a big fix and you don't want to do it, you can, of course, put up a sign and tape it off and whatnot, but that doesn't always look that great. So if possible to fix it would be better. In terms of interior of the home, so rule of thumb, think neutral and clean. Neutral and clean. So some of the things that you could do is to look at flooring. So it doesn't have to be super fancy. We don't have to look at necessarily remodeling entirely the kitchen and bathrooms, and I'll talk about that as well. But definitely a few of the things to note: the flooring. So carpet is in general not as attractive. That could change in the future, because I know I've been into homes where the trend, I think it was the 70s or so, where people were covering their wood floors because they preferred carpet. Right now, that's not the case. So right now, more people are into either hardwood floors or LVP, the luxury vinyl plank flooring, which is really easy to maintain, and it looks clean and attractive. So, keep that in mind, especially with the carpets. You also have issues of potential allergies and whatnot. So flooring, that's a nice way to be able to update the look. Walls, definitely, if there's wallpaper. Again, wallpaper was in at a certain point, and I remember when I was little helping my mom, putting wallpaper up in our house. And it's not so much so. In some cases it is. There are some places where there are trendy ways to do wallpaper. But if you have the older wallpaper, and especially if it's peeling, good to remove it. If it's in good enough shape where you can paint over it, that's also an option. But a lot of times I find that the wallpaper, it's sometimes better to remove it. It is more costly if you have to remove wallpaper, though, because it's not that easy to do. Definitely newer paint, and I would say brighter neutral tones are good to have, because and sometimes I've gone into a house and people are like, oh, it looks so white, but when you get staging and other things in there, it can open up a place very well. And also, if you have lighter colors and if you have a shorter ceiling, it can make it feel like the room is actually higher. The ceiling is higher than it is. And definitely neutral tones is as much as possible. Cabinets, paint, and new hardware sometimes is an easy way to fix and update cabinetry. Just hardware, new hardware in general, meaning the cabinet pulls and the door handles. Sometimes those are an easy way to update, and it's cheap. And the second, and that's also true for the next one, which is the door hardware and light switches. That can be an inexpensive way of being able to update the look and feel of a place. And then new lighting fixtures as well where appropriate. So those are some of the things that can really help to make a house look more attractive. In terms of exterior of the home, think curb appeal, right? Landscaping, especially the front yard. I know there are some cases where we've had lawns because of the droughts that we've been experiencing in past years, where the lawns have gone dry. So a lot of people I've had a client who actually had it painted, which is one option where you can actually paint it and it looks pretty good, pretty natural, or undo that and put in like just some bark or some high water efficient landscaping. People like that. A lot of the buyers out there don't want to necessarily garden a lot, and so you can make it clean and attractive, not get too fancy. Consider just even something like a power washing of the outside, the driveway, the front walkways, the back patios, just to clean. Again, think clean. And then exterior painting, I don't usually do actually exterior painting on most of the listings that I have. So it depends, but if you have a color that's really worn down, I do actually have one listing where we're doing exterior paint because it's been such a long time and the colors are kind of drab. It's a yellow and green color that's a little bit drab right now. And so we're going to be updating that. And then an easy update, consider painting the front door. Not that expensive, maybe $400 or $500. You can, we did that with a recent listing of mine, and that just makes a difference. And again, curb appeal, it just looks prettier. So just a few different suggestions there. In terms of identifying potential upgrades to maximize your ROI, which is return on investment, There is a magazine called Cost versus Value, or there's a resource from Zonda Media, and they do this cost versus value report. I do have the website here so that you can, and if you need that, I'll send that out in a follow-up email. But you can just look up cost versus value. And what they do is they go into all of the different areas and they survey remodeling professionals to say, okay, how much would it cost to, in your area, to say remodel a bathroom? And how much would you get back for it? How much return would you get on your investment? So if I spend $100,000 on my bathroom, am I going to get $100,000 back? And if you look at that, it's interesting because it does change over time. But many times, if you look at the report now, and I can't show it here for copyright reasons, it actually has, most of those are less than 100%. So most of those big upgrades that you do, in general, I would say you don't actually get your money's worth. So if you're remodeling, it's better to do that. If you're doing remodeling, do it for yourself and for your own purposes. But if you're doing it for the purpose of selling, it might not always make sense to do a full-on remodel. Okay, so just wanting to put that out there for you. And then I did want to bring up a free model, which is a company I've been partnering up with lately, where they will help with moving, decluttering, doing remodels. They can do as much or as little as you want them to do. Landscaping. They helped me with a recent project that I have in one of my listings in Millbrae, and basically they did the flooring, the things that I talked about, right? The flooring, the paint, lighting fixtures, and whatnot. The bathrooms need to be remodeled, so the shower and tub areas are still older. They're not quite original, but they're decades old. We didn't do that because we're on a budget. And what was nice is that they had a project designer who would actually coordinate the whole thing. And this company will actually finance it for you so that you end up not having to pay until you close escrow, not having to pay until you sell. And so this is a great option. And if you're interested in knowing more about that, please feel free to reach out to me because I've had a great experience with them, and they're working on another project for me right now. So that's out there in case you're going, well, I don't have the money to put up front. They don't charge any extra fees or interest on it. But and it's a great stress-free way to do this. The next section I'm going to go into is disclosures. So having complete disclosures, the benefits of having a disclosure package. So in our area, this is not true for other areas, even within California, and definitely not true in other parts of the country. What we like to do is provide a disclosure package. And what are the benefits of this? Before I go into what's in it, first of all, we provide all the disclosures up front before even an offer is made. What's nice about that is that you avoid any surprises for buyers and sellers. You maximize the chance of having a clean offer with minimal contingencies, because they've seen all the information, right? So there's a possibility that you might have buyers who are encouraged to not have a property inspection contingency because they already see it right there and they know the issues. It could minimize further negotiations after an offer has been accepted. So even if there are contingencies in there, if a buyer already knows coming into it that, okay, I put my offer in knowing that there is $20,000 worth of termite work that needs to be done, then you don't have a buyer coming back later and saying, well, I know I gave you this offer, but there's $20,000 worth of termite work to be done. You don't need to go through that kind of a negotiation because you already knew about it, right? So that's helpful. And then minimize the liability later for the seller, where I've provided all the information up front, been transparent. Yes, you can do this along the way. So there are couple times in my career where we just didn't have all the information together and we're in a hurry to get on market for different reasons. And so we've had to do it piecemeal. And the concern with that is that, the buyers are getting things drip by drip. They're not having one time, and it could be that things get lost in the process where they didn't receive it and things like that. That can happen, or that you missed something that we needed to provide. So, definitely good to prepare a complete disclosure package and provide that up front. This is a list of some of the main disclosure forms that you can put out there. There's a transfer disclosure statement and seller property questionnaire, which are questionnaires that a seller would fill out about anything you know about the property. There are things like earthquake hazards, fire hazards, lead-based paint, natural hazards disclosure. And I'm not going to go into detail on each one of them, but those are just some of the forms there. Agent visual inspection disclosure, or as a listing agent, I'm required to go through and do a visual inspection of things that I see and am aware of. A preliminary title report, which is pulled up to show who owns the property, make sure that you're actually the ones who have authority to sign. And then whatever liens and easements and other things on the property, that in itself is a whole seminar. Homeowners association docs. So this has to do with if you live in a condo or a townhome. Then there will be HOA documents to provide, and as much as possible. And I have a whole series on that as well, on HOA documents. Property inspections, highly recommended. They're not required for sellers to do, but highly recommended. Going back to that whole making sure that there are no surprises later. That the buyers know what they're getting into, and that they're fully informed. And then there are a bunch of other standard forms and advisories. It's a big package that we provide, but that's important to protect you as a seller, and definitely to make sure that the buyers are aware. What to disclose? Anything that could impact marketability. So anything that would cause a buyer to hesitate putting in an offer, or maybe put in a lower offer. So anything that could impact that. Defects, some examples, defects in items that are not working, even if they were repaired, that's good to do. A death on the property, it is required. If there has been a death on the property in the last 3 years, it is required that be disclosed. And that is important to some buyers out there. Insurance issues, if you're aware of any insurance issues, whether it's difficult to get insurance because of being in a flood zone or a fire zone, any claims that have been made, because insurance has become a big issue lately, with a lot of the big companies pulling out of California. Again, another seminar topic, but that is important to have. Environmental hazards and neighborhood concerns. So all of those are some of the examples. That's not limited to that, but what I would say is disclose, disclose, disclose. The rule of thumb: how would this impact a buyer's willingness to buy the house, or the price that they put in? Right? If you were a buyer, put on your buyer's hat and go, if I were a buyer and I saw this, what, would that cause me to either not put an offer or put much less, right? And when in doubt, ask your agent. That's what we're here for. We're here to guide you through this process and help you to make sure that you protect your liabilities. Pricing your home. So this is a huge topic, and but deciding on a list price, proper pricing is really one of the most important parts of marketing you can do. So preparing the home for sale, having nice fancy staging and photography, all of that is great. It's necessary, but I would say price is really, you have to think about that list price as another aspect of marketing. I know there are some sellers out there, some clients that I've had in the past who get concerned because they're like, well, if I list it at, $9.99 and somebody comes in at $9.99, do I have to sell it to them? No, you don't. It's, you're not required to sell it to them. So, and there are other terms and other things involved in that. What that does when you set a price is it's like putting a price tag on it. And by the way that you price it, you can increase the odds of getting more exposure, meaning more people come and see it. And if more people come and see it, then there are more potential offers. The more potential offers you have, the higher the possibility of getting a higher price, as well as good terms. And that'll lead you to getting sold. So to getting the house sold. So super important to price. Super important to price properly. Computer valuations. So just a quick aside on this, internet estimates are not always accurate. So I know people look on, Redfin, they get the Z estimates, they get different estimates. We provide as agents also different computer valuation systems are out there. But really, if you want a better estimate or the best estimate for the value of your home, you need to speak with a real estate professional, because we're the ones who are out there in the field, can talk to other agents, know the market, know the different quirks of the different neighborhoods, can evaluate all of that. What affects a home's value? So first of all, location, location, location. I'm sure most of you have heard of this before, have heard this phrase, and it's just true, right? So where you are located, where the lot is located, which specific neighborhood, proximity to transportation, etc. That's something that you cannot change of a house. All the the physical characteristics you can change somewhat, right, depending on And the condition you can change somewhat, but the location you can't. So that's the location is key. And physical characteristics, so the size of the home, the layout, the lot, different things like that, the architectural design. And then condition. So is it in moving condition? Is it a fixer-upper or a scraper? There are different terms for that. The condition will affect the value, obviously, and then market conditions. So seasonal trends, macroeconomic conditions, and the local market can make a big difference. There are seasonal trends, even though we don't have as extreme seasons here in the Bay Area. We do have some seasonal trends, but when the inventory is really low, sometimes even that doesn't, it can be the market being impacted by other things beyond just the seasons, right? So it's good, and that's another reason why really having a real estate professional helping you makes a big difference, because it'll differ depending on what's going on in your area. So how do we come up with that? Well, there's what's called a comparative market analysis. Take the statistics from the multiple listing service, and then these are some of the ways to think about, what's going on in your area. When we look at active properties, those are the competition. Those are the ones that we want to, measure ourselves up against and make sure that we're not overpriced compared to them, or that we look better than them. However you do that. Under contract, those are the ones that were successful, quote unquote successful, especially if the days on market were relatively low. That means that they listed well for whatever reason, and it's good to learn from them. And that gives you an idea of where do we price, what's the market doing. The sold listings are useful because they give us a lot of information, but one is the final sales price, because as long as it's pending or active, we don't actually get to see what it's sold for. So that's helpful. And then the expired are the ones that were unsuccessful, that did not sell. And so it's good to get an idea of what's going on out there. As I said, pricing is one of the most important things when it comes to selling a home. Importance of proper pricing or intelligent pricing. This is a little diagram to show you percent of buyers who will view your property. So if you think of this middle bar as fair market value, this is where we think we're probably going to end up doing the comparative market analysis and going, I think this is probably a good fair price for what I'm going to be selling. And if you look at it, if we list higher than that, by say 5% or 10% higher than market value, then the percent of prospective buyers who look at that property actually goes down, right? So whereas if you list it lower at 5 or 10% below, and again, this is a general way to look at it, right? So, but if you list it 5 or 10% below, you may be getting about 80 to 90% of prospective buyers looking at the property. Whereas if it's at fair market value, 60%, and again, if you list higher, you might get less people looking at the property, especially in our market, because there is so much of a trend of agents who list on the lower side and then are pricing it so that we can get competitive offers, multiple offers coming in. So if you are listing it higher, you may have people who are going, oh, okay, well, they're asking for, I don't know, 1.8 million. And they're thinking that it's going to go to 2. They're thinking that it's going to go to 1.9, and it's way above my budget, right? When maybe you were only expecting 1.7. So important to recognize is that if you price too high, there is a risk that you end up getting less people who even just come to see the property, right? And fall in love with it and all the unique features that are there. This is another way to look at that is if you look at the pictures of the homes, they all look fairly similar. The top batch is listed at 2 million and the bottom batch is listed at 1.5 million. If a buyer is getting ready to go out to look at homes, which homes are they going to go to see? I don't think it's a question, right? They're going to look at the ones that are listed at the 1.5 million, even if, say, all of these are going to go for 1.8, right? But you have the ones that are listed higher, you have the ones that are listed lower. Even if people know that, okay, market value, maybe 1.7, 1.8, the ones that the buyers are going to go see, you're going to get more activity at that lower price level. Another way to think about this is excitement of a new listing. So when a new listing goes on market, there's an excitement of it, right? And so this, you'll see the activity, how many people are coming to see a property in the first few weeks, first 1 to 3 weeks. I would argue that for some of them, it actually, the curve goes up higher faster. But, this is in general, you'll see, within the first few weeks, the excitement is there, activity is high. And then as time goes by, it starts dropping off, right? It starts dropping off. And then taking that to a different area, this whole idea of overpricing, right? Say you say that we're going to test the market. So the market value we think is here, down here where the red starts. But, you go, well, I want to see because my house is special and it's different from others. It has some unique traits and characteristics that I think buyers will appreciate. So I'm going to list it a little bit higher. I'm going to go here to this blue line and we're going to test it out. And if it doesn't work out, we'll drop the price then. Well, what happens, as I mentioned in the previous slide, there's this sense of excitement at the very beginning, right? And you have more people coming. Over time, that excitement starts dying. And so by the time you say, okay, I'm going to drop the price now because we've been waiting, it's been 3 weeks and not really as many buyers are starting to come in and whatnot, so we're going to drop the price. Well, what's happened now is that the buyers are going, what's wrong with that house? Why didn't it sell? It's been 3 weeks, although 3 weeks is not that long, but in our market, if you have things that are selling after 2 weeks, then 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks starts feeling a little bit longer. And the buyers and agents will be going, I'll get calls or your agent will get a call saying, what's wrong with it? Why hasn't it sold? Right. And so the buyer's perception of value starts going down. So you do a price reduction, the buyers are starting to drop off, their time goes by and you go, okay, well, I have to do another price reduction. And you can see here, even if you do the price reductions, we're basically chasing the market down. And there's that lost value. Whereas if we had priced it a little, closer to fair market value or even a little under, buyer's perception of value is high at the beginning and we haven't lost that. So super important. Evaluating and negotiating offers. So now we got, we priced it well, we've done everything right, and we put it on the market. 10 days goes by and we have, we've got so much interest that we've set a date and we've gotten a bunch of offers coming in. So how do we evaluate it? Well, first of all, remember, an offer is more than just your price. There are other things that are involved in that. So the offer terms, yes, price is important. There's also close of escrow. So how long will it take to close? In some cases, sometimes a quicker close is desirable because then especially if you've already bought, say, your new home and you don't want to be making 2 payments. Having a quick close of escrow is good. Sometimes you want it to be longer for a different reason. You need more time. Down payment and loan. So the higher the down payment, the more there's that possibility. So generally, if you can get a 20% down payment, that's ideal for the buyer. That's ideal. If they can go higher than that, then that can offset some of the possibility of the loan going through. And I don't have enough time to go into detail on that, but if you have a little bit of a higher down payment, sometimes that can make it more favorable. There are contingencies involved, and the main ones are the property, the loan, appraisal, and insurance. And so those are contingencies that can be built into a contract. Any requests for repairs, as well as any closing cost allocations. So those are some things that can be covered, that can be brought up in an offer. Other considerations, they do have to put in there if it's going to be for their principal residents or investor buyers. And just to note, when you're buying your property, or if you've known in the past, there used to be these buyer love letters, we used to call them. That's no longer advisable. And those are those letters where the buyers say, dear Mr. and Mrs. Seller, here I am, and I have this cute family, and we want to live here forever, and we love your house. That kind of thing is no longer advisable due to fair housing concerns. So if you were used to that in the past and you haven't sold in a while or have never sold, that's something that we as agents do not advise. If you really want to see them, there is a way for you to be able to tell your agents that you want to do it against our advice. But if the reason that's not there is that it's not advised anymore is because of fair housing considerations, where some people may feel like you're discriminating against them if you don't choose them just because they don't have, they're not married, they don't have this cute family, or they are a certain minority or a certain race, or have different sexual orientation, different things like that, where you could be somebody could accuse you of discriminating against them. So there is a risk of that. There's also the strength of the buyer's qualifications and the lender. So that's something that your agent can help you discern. And this is not all in all, but it's really important to me, which is who is the buyer's agent? What does the offer package look like? How are they presenting it? Because that can give you an indication of how the transaction is going to go for the future. So, if you have an agent that and they're really professional, but the price is low, maybe it won't be enough to offset that. But if I have a few offers or even two offers where they're very similar, then sometimes knowing the other side agent that I'm going to be working with, I do advise my sellers, this agent is professional. They're going to get this done. We're not going to have a bunch of headaches and stress along the way. And that can be something, that is something that can be important. What is an as-is sale? And I know I have to wrap it up. I'm almost near the end, actually. What is an as-is sale? So a lot of times I'll have sellers who go, well, I want an as-is sale. And just to keep in mind, every sale, according to our California contract, every sale is an as-is sale. The house is being sold in the condition that it's in, unless you are actually requesting repairs to be done. So it does not mean that the buyer cannot do their inspections. Buyers can still do their inspections. If they discover something new, they can still negotiate. So I just think that's important to make clear, because sometimes I'll have sellers go, well, they want to do inspections, but this is as is. I'm not doing anything. It's like, I understand that, but that doesn't mean that your buyers don't have the right to be able to do their inspections. And if you're a seller, it is advisable to let them do their inspections, because that'll protect you later on. It's really important to keep that distinction, but as is in the contract is already there, and it is saying the house that we know in its as is condition, that's what it's being sold in. And then your options in responding to offers is to accept offers as they are, reject them outright, or you can counter, and you can actually do a single counter, so counter only one of the parties. Or if you've had multiple offers and you have a few that are similar, there are ways to do a multiple counter offer. Be careful with the counters, because once you do that, you're actually voiding out or negating the existing original offer. And so the terms of the original offer still are there because it's attached to that. But then the counter is, if you don't accept it, or if the buyer decides that if you counter a buyer and they decide they don't want it, you can't just go back to them and say, okay, well, your original one was okay, let's just sign that. You've already kind of by doing the counter, you've actually kind of I don't want to say canceled it out, but that's in effect what's going on. With the multiple counters, what you can do is you actually counter multiple people. They can all choose to accept, reject, or counter you back. And then if all of them accepted, or several people have accepted, as a seller, you still need to go back and accept one of them. So the multiple counter is good to do if you have kind of a situation where some are very similar. I would say tread carefully as you do it, and your agent needs to guide you through this process. One thing that I really like, that I always do with my listings, is call the agents who have submitted offers before I even talk to the sellers. I call to the agents and I find out, how is this price fixed? Can they go any higher? Are the contingencies fixed? Can we reduce those? What are the terms on there? Can we clean some things up so that if we're doing a counter, we're not going in just a hope. I hope that they'll give me more money. We're not going in like that. We're going in really with that knowledge of, okay, this buyer seems like they might be able to come up a little bit more if it's competitive. This buyer, they said it's their highest, they're not really, there's no way that they can, meet up to this other offer. So you can get all of that information. And I think that's important to do. So that's what you can do. And when all of that is said and done, congratulations, you get a great offer or more than one offer. So that's great. And then you just have to look forward to a smooth and successful close if everything has been done well. So from start to finish, just to wrap it up, preparation of the house, that depends on the situation and what you need to do to prepare. For the house that I had Free Model do in Millbrae, it took us about 4 to 5 weeks, because we were doing all the painting, the flooring, and whatnot. Not remodeling kitchen countertop, not a full-on remodel, but updating the light fixtures and all of the fixtures. That took about a month. There is the preparation of marketing, takes about 1 to 2 weeks. putting the home on the market, that can vary how long it takes. Like I said, right now for the whole county, the median sale is about 12 days. So you can count easily 1 to 2 weeks if you're in a good situation. Sometimes with condos, it'll be a little bit longer. Sometimes depending on the situation, the location, etc., you might need to account for a little bit of a longer marketing time. Escrow, typically 25 to 30 days. And one tip is to kind of look at that and then, figure out, okay, how much time do I need to get through this whole process? And then decide, know when you want to sell or move by and count backwards from there. One of the things to keep in mind is when you want to sell is what is the marketing period? I mean, what is the seasonal period? So if you are thinking you're going to have to, by doing all of this, we might end up going on market in December. It's not impossible, but it might not be as favorable just because we do have people who are, thinking about going on vacation more, the buyers out there. And so things tend to slow down a little bit. So it might be better to wait and go on the market in the spring. So, all of that, again, you need to consult with your agent, but really figuring out when is the time that we want to shoot for to get on market, or maybe I need to relocate, or when, all of that, depending on when you want to sell or need to move by, count backwards from there because the time goes very quickly. So that does it for this section, the essentials of home selling. Thank you so much for those who have joined us. And I really hope that you'll be able to join us for the in-person one because I'm looking forward to that.